A lot of movies don't need sequels or remakes. Now, unfortunately, a lot of movies that don't need sequels or remakes end up getting them no matter what, no matter how much we might protest, no matter how much they might not actually even need a sequel or remake. And some movies or even anime or TV shows won't need a sequel, but will end up getting 4 or 5, maybe 6, maybe even 10 movies, depending on how popular the first depending on how popular the first movie or the first 2 movies were. They'll end up with about 4 or 5 movies, and they only really needed 1, maybe 2. But depending on how popular said movie, TV show, or anime even was, they'll get a sequel, they'll get a trilogy, they might get a video game spin-off, they might get a book, they might get a book, they might get a lot of shit that they don't need. Yeah, one of the first animes that comes to mind that didn't need a second season at all was Fooly Cooly. Fooly Cooly has, I think, 4 or 5 parts now, and it didn't need 2. Fooly Cooly is the one anime that I know for a fact did not need a second part, didn't need a third part, and then damn sure didn't need a 4th part. Everything was fine at the end of the first season. We didn't need a sequel, a trilogy. We didn't need any of that shit at all. Hell, the idea from this video came from Kung Fu Panda 4 being a thing. Kung Fu Panda did not need a 4th movie. Me and my sister tried to watch Kung Fu Panda, and like in the first 5 minutes, we got bored because you can kind of tell what the plot is, like as soon as the movie starts and through the trailers. If you've seen any of the trailers, like you know exactly what's gonna happen, you know exactly who he's gonna pick to be the next Dragon Warrior. Like it's not really any suspense or like mystery to it. And I'm not saying that a movie being predictable is a bad thing, because it could easily be a good movie, but you can still kind of guess what the plot is. But the fact that you can kind of guess what the whole plot is, and it doesn't really seem like anything original or any plot twist is really gonna happen. Stuff like Megamind 2 did not need to happen. I don't know why we thought that a second Megamind movie, I think like a decade later, was really needed. Like there was no more story to tell about Megamind. There was no more story left, and them adding on a story doesn't make it a proper sequel. It just means they added on to it. It damn near could be a reboot at this point. But certain movies just don't need sequels. Certain animes don't need sequels. Hell, certain video games don't need sequels. But in a perfect world, they wouldn't have them. But we're not in a perfect world.
Now a word from our sponsors.
Hi, before using Dubby, I was a father of 12. But now, after Dubby, I'm a deadbeat dad.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Let's see what we got in here for the Dubby. Big Dubby. We got the motherfucking. We got the motherfucking. Oh shit. So the first flavor of Dubby, we have peach and beet.
You what?
Second flavor of Dubby, we got the dragon maid. Next flavor we have laxative.
What?
Oh, Laxy grenade. Next flavor we have this is a 0 sugar powder pack. And last but certainly not least, we have Heinz Berry Splash. I'm Wasabi, and this has been your Dubby advertisement.
Let's just stick with movies for a second, because movies are kind of like, the main victim of unwanted sequels and trilogies, and sometimes even books, even after all the trilogies and sequels and shit. But movies suffer the most from, getting sequels and trilogies when they don't need it. But sometimes they're pretty good. Like the Kung Fu Panda trilogy is a great trilogy. It's one of the rare trilogies where all 3 movies are really fucking good. But some movies aren't really too, I wouldn't say good enough, but some movies just don't need a sequel in the slightest fucking bit. Like a movie like Ice Age, for example. Ice Age has like 5 fucking movies. Why? I don't fucking know. Ice Age didn't need a sequel or a trilogy. Even though the second movie is pretty passable and the third movie is watchable, the quality just goes down because they keep adding on a bunch of unnecessary story, a bunch of unnecessary characters to the movie just to keep expanding it and to keep the franchise alive. When in fact, franchises would be more revered if it was just kept with the original movie 20-some years ago. Because I think the thing that a lot of movie studios miss is that we remember movies when they're left alone at their peak. Like stuff like Monsters Inc. before the sequel came out, which is decent, by the way. I don't hate it. But the Monsters Inc. sequel wasn't needed. Like Monsters Inc. didn't have any more story to tell. And even when they released the sequel, which is kind of like a prequel because it's about them in college, didn't need to know about what we didn't need to know the lore of how Sully and Mike met. We didn't really need need to know that. It was unnecessary story bit that they added to an already good movie franchise. And also, speaking of, sequels that came way later than the original came out, not necessarily a sequel, but the fourth Matrix movie, which came out, I think 3 years ago, I believe, in 2021 or something like that. Why did we get that? Like, there was no point in having a fourth Matrix movie when there was no point in having a second and third Matrix movie. And I love the first Matrix movie. The first Matrix movie is a classic. I love it, even though it is kind of dated because it came out in the fucking 90s and everything like that. But the first Matrix movie is a classic. The sequel was pretty decent too. But we did not need a fourth Matrix movie. Once you start getting to where you're making the fourth movie in a series, it's time to pack it up. Like, unless it's a long book series like, Harry Potter or like the Hunger Games, it's time to just pack up the movie series and just call it a day. Because at that point, you're just adding on extra story bits. Because I guarantee you, in a lot of these movies that have, 4 and 5 and 6 movies, the original story ended a long fucking time ago. And they're just adding on shit so they can make more money based off the title of the name. And stuff like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, and hell, even Saw suffer from this the most because we're at Saw 10 now, and I don't even know how many, movies Freddy and Jason have. I don't even know at this point. They've been making movies for those dudes since the fucking 80s. Like, it's been like 30 fucking years since they've been making movies for those. And they're still going. I think it was just another Halloween movie, I think 2 or 3 years ago. And it's like, why? Like, there is no point in making these movies for 30 fucking years, because at some point it gets tired. Like, we know that, on Friday the 13th, he's just gonna run around and kill people. He's been trying to kill the same motherfucker for like 30 fucking years. Give it a rest already. And movies and TV shows are not alone in this, because anime suffers from this too. Because the main thing about this that I just hate is that a lot of the studios refuse to let these shows and movies and animes die. Like, they refuse to just let them ride off into the sunset with a good ending and never touch it again. Like, never touch it again. Just leave it alone. It had its ending. Just let it be. Every anime doesn't need to be going on for 25 years. One Piece. Every anime doesn't need to just keep going and going and going and going. Hell, Naruto's a part of this too. We didn't need Boruto. I've been watching Naruto related stuff since I was like 5-6 years old. I'm damn near 25 now. There's damn near 20 years I've been watching Naruto or Naruto related stuff. Boruto wasn't needed. The last episode of Naruto should have been his Hokage coronation. That's it. We didn't need a Boruto series. We didn't need to see the adventures of his son and Sasuke's son and everybody else's son and daughter. We didn't need it. But because they didn't want, the legacy of Naruto to just, ride off into the sunset and kind of, eventually be forgotten as the years go on and on and on, we have Boruto now, which is, that's a whole nother rant for another day. And in the end, this never really helps, movies or TVs or anime shows stand out at all. It really kills the franchise. And it makes people think about the franchise in more of a negative way than they did before the Unwanted sequel, or before the Unwanted trilogy, or if you're like Saw, the 10 movies that they've made over the past like 15 years. Eventually, there is no point in making any more Saw movies, Friday the 13th movies, Nightmare on Elm Street movies, Naruto episodes, One Piece episodes. Eventually, you have to let it end. No matter how much money you make from it, you have to let the show end. Yeah, the same thing with Pokemon. Pokemon's been on TV for like 30 fucking years. I know they just retired Ash like sometime last year. They just, got Ash off the show, but Pokemon, the show, it's still going. And I'm not naive enough to think that they'll ever like stop making Pokemon episodes, because it just makes them that much money. But also at the same time, at this point, there's just really no point in making it, because I haven't watched Pokemon in a while, but it's not like, the formula for Pokemon is ever really gonna change. Like, there's never really like nothing new you could add to Pokemon. I don't know about to sit up here, judge whether or not the new Pokemon episodes are good or not. But what I am saying is that eventually we're gonna need Pokemon to end. Eventually we're gonna need Dragon Ball, One Piece, Naruto, Bleach. Eventually all of these old animes and these old shows are gonna have to end at some point in any given time. They're gonna need to end because it's gonna hit a point to where, because this happens to almost every franchise that continuously goes on and doesn't, have a conclusive endpoint. It's happened with The Simpsons, it happened with Family Guy, it's happened to shows like American Dad. Eventually a show goes on and on and on for so long to where you run out of shit to make. You run out of shit to talk about. You run out of story. You can't, make up any more story that's not from the original plot. At a certain point, the show's gonna need to end so that you're not messing up the show's legacy. The Simpsons legacy is fucking done for. Like The Simpsons and Family Guy's legacy is fucking done for. Everybody's just gonna talk about how bad the show is now and how good it used to be, and not how good it still is. Like the Simpsons and Family Guy used to be way better. Not even like 20 years ago, hell, even 10 years ago, Family Guy and The Simpsons used to be way better. And a show that I don't really see people talking about it enough because of it lasting too long is Bob's Burgers. Bob's Burgers does not need to have 13 fucking seasons. Just because a show is popular enough to have 13 or 20 seasons doesn't mean it should. Just because a show can go on for 20 years and be the main show of a TV network, SpongeBob, doesn't mean it should. Just because you have the ability to make this show have, 400 episodes, doesn't mean you should. Just because a show has that ability to, does not mean it should. And at the end of the day, it makes shows worse, and it makes the show's legacy, and it taints the show's legacy. So people don't, leave the show thinking that's a good fucking show. People leave that show saying this shit should have ended 20 years ago.